Good morning, everybody, or I guess officially good afternoon, right? It's right at noon, high noon. So I'm Andrea Hamastaj with the Ames Chamber of Commerce, and you are joining us for a virtual business builder. Thank you all for joining us. These are being presented to you by our sponsors, PCmatic and First National Bank. They're great partners of us at the Ames Chamber, so thank you to them for helping us make these happen and continue to get you some great programming. Today we have our guest is Samantha Grove, and she's a familiar face to many of us here in Ames and Story County. Long time working with marketing and advertising and clients and just lots of great expertise, and has taken a new role in recent months with Model Farm. So we're excited to have her here with us today. So Samantha, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me virtually.
Yeah.
Welcome everybody to my office. I am excited to be here, yes, and excited to talk about client communication because not only is this sort of an area that I have a bit of experience in, but I'm also experiencing the need to communicate well with my clients. And so it was kind of a good refresher for me of all the things that we should and shouldn't be doing, and just interesting changes that have been happening in our world and how that might affect our communication. So it's always applicable to myself as well as to you all. Before I jump in, I'm really usually a pretty informal presenter, and so I told Andrea that I really wanted to keep this as informal as possible. So if you have questions, I think you can virtually raise your hand. Andrea and
Yep.
Ali are helping monitor all that. So I will try to leave a little space for that as well. But just jump in, ask your questions, because my goal is that you're able to take one thing. I always say if you take one thing away from a presentation and you can apply it to your business, then it's been a good use of your hour. So
Love that. Yep.
Yes. So yes, I work for Model Farm here in Ames, and we are affiliated with Iowa State University. I'm doing marketing for clients all across the country, but a lot in Ames and at campus. And we are a student-run agency, and our mission is to really bridge the gap between the classroom and the real world for students, so they get to experience firsthand what it's like working with clients, doing client projects, and really have a better handle on what they're getting into when they get into the real world. And so this has actually been a great experience for them as well, to learn what it's like to work from home and whether or not they like that environment. There's so many learning opportunities that have been happening over the last few months, and I think you all can probably attest to that. Even as professionals, we're learning as we go. So I've been doing marketing for about 20 years here in Story County, and I'll tell you, I started my career as a wedding coordinator at Gateway. It's what brought me to Ames. And you might not believe it, but there's a lot of crisis communication that goes on with brides. If there's a pork chop bone on a plate, that might be a crisis. So I got my feet wet early. But then I went into healthcare marketing, and there was actually crisis communication. And from the very beginning of my career, I think it was my second day, and I was probably 22 years old, maybe. I found out that we were the only location in the county that had flu vaccines. And so I did my little PR self, and I made a press release and all the things that I had learned in college. Of course, faking it till I made it. And I literally, second day on the job, came in to work the next day, and there was a line of people outside the building, around the way, in line for flu shots, because I told everyone we were the only ones left in the county that had flu shots. And it was a big deal. And then about 2 hours later, Chopper 13 is flying over, and we're on the news, all of the local news stations, and I'm just doing my thing, managing all the media. And I think my boss was probably like, who did I hire? Was this a good idea? But that was my very first introduction to crisis communication, and I loved it. I thought, I love being able to communicate with the people who need the information, and I can help them get what they need. And so since then, I've done quite a bit of crisis communication on my own as a marketing professional, and then since transitioned into a consultant role where I'm training my clients on what to do in a crisis, and oftentimes doing leadership training. So that being said, everybody hopes they don't have a lot of crisis to communicate in life. And today we're going to talk about really, I'll kind of flip to the next slide here. We're going to do sort of the basic, excuse me, I'll just get a little water here. There we go. Principles of crisis communication. But at this point in the pandemic, we're really kind of past that initial stage of crisis communication. So I'm going to go over the principles just because I think it's important. But then we're going to get into like, how do you communicate now? We've been in this a couple months. What are we doing now? Talking about knowing our audience well, talking about using communication tools effectively and picking which ones you need and should be using, managing the expectations of your customers and clients, and then just exploring what opportunities are available for marketing during this time, because there are a lot. So before we get too much into that, do we have any questions to start? Andrew, you can let me know if there's anybody.
Yep. I don't see any questions yet. So again, everybody, audience, please use your chat box or raise your hand if you want to ask a question, and I'll be monitoring it for Samantha so that she can keep going on, but I'll interrupt it as appropriate. Thank you.
Perfect. All right. Well, I keep on clicking my slides back and forth, so hopefully. The big thing that I always like to start with is sort of the why. Like the reason that you're here, the reason that we need to be communicating well with our customers and clients is because at the end of the day, you're building a brand during these kind of trying times. And just like in our personal lives, we often see really significant growth after a time of trial, which is usually, hindsight's 2020, right? Like you're going through the trial, the heat is on, and then afterwards, like, wow, like I grew a lot in that stage. And I think that brands experience the same thing. During times like this, we will often look back and be like, wow, we innovated during that time. We built a really awesome email list during that time. We, whatever it was, grew on social media. And you can look back and say that you strengthened your brand. And all of that is based on the communication you're doing. Communication builds trust, trust builds brands. That's just the basics of marketing. So as we go along too, I really want to know, like, what kind of businesses are you in? Are you talking to customers, like retail customers, or do you maybe have more clients in the service industry? So if you ask a question, please feel free to tell me, what your industry is and kind of the person that you're talking to. So like I mentioned, we'll talk real quick about just the crisis communication 101. And again, if you didn't know these, you probably learned them quick in the last couple of months. But some basics when any crisis happens, whether it's short or long, the number one thing is to know what your message is going to be to your audience and then stick to it. We don't want to be willy-nilly all over the place. Like we say one thing and then we change our mind and we say another thing. So starting with a little bit of strategy, these are the top 3 things we want to say, whether it's, you had a fire at your place of business and the information is everyone is safe and we are looking into what happened and we hope to be open tomorrow. Whatever that is, create your message, stick to it. And then just, I always say that seems to me like these are good common sense, but sometimes we have to remind ourselves of what those are. But to be transparent, to show that you care about the people you're talking about. They are your audience. They are the people that are making you money. So to be honest with them and to be empathetic that, whatever is happening is changing their lives as well as changing yours. And showing that expertise and leadership in whatever little sector you're in. One of the things that is in the sort of don't pile is don't talk out of your scope. Stay in your lane, talk about the thing that you're supposed to be talking about. Don't extrapolate, don't get political, don't go off on all these other tangents. This is my message. This is what I'm good at. This is what I'm going to share with you. People like to have things to do. So I often say in a crisis, if you can end with some sort of call to action, this is what you can do. it's good. It gives people a feeling like they have purpose and that they're part of something with you. You're not just talking at them, but you're asking them to do something. So in this case, that might be asking them to donate to a cause. It might be asking them to sign up for special newsletter or special releases. If you notice, like the news has, you can now get notifications only on COVID topics. So whatever it is you want them to do. And then some of the don'ts. Don't change your brand voice. If you're a lighthearted brand and you're always pretty fun and funny and lighthearted, it's okay to continue being that brand even in a crisis. Don't try to be funny if you're not a funny brand. Keeping the same consistency. Consistency builds trust. With whatever your normal messaging is, stick to that in your crisis communication messaging as well. Don't delay any information. If you have the information, share it. If you have been watching the news, and again, not to be political because that's not where we're going, but if you notice that the Tyson plant in Perry, like they're withholding this information that in the end was going to be released anyway, whether or not we think that's right or wrong, they created more of a problem for themselves in delaying that information. And they probably have their reasons for doing that. I'm not sitting on the outside extrapolating what the reasons were, but the point is, not saying something often creates more of a problem for yourself. And again, don't overpromise, don't reassure. Like we can't say like, gosh, we'll be back in a month, it's going to be fine. We really don't know. And so trying not to overpromise something that you're not sure of. And it's okay to be honest. The number one question I have from clients during a crisis is like, I don't want to say something, like I don't want to say too much. It's okay to be honest and to say you don't know. It's okay to say, the actual truth of what happened. It's always better to be honest and transparent. So those are just some of the kind of basics. But again, like I said, we're kind of in a place where we're past the like initial crisis. And so now what? Now what is where we're going to get into today. The number one thing of any sort of marketing 101 is to know your audience and to know them well. And so when you're looking at messaging around crisis communication or any messaging really, the first step is to really understand who you're talking to. And so not only who they are demographically, you might know that your market is mostly stay-at-home moms, or your market is retirees or something like that. But really thinking about what is their current situation. What are the pain points that they are like thinking about in their brain? What's keeping them up at night is what I always say. And how are they consuming information? So in this particular time period, it's really good to know, and we'll talk about on our next slide, how they're getting their information so that you can be in that space for them. You want to be a solution to their problem. And so if you don't know what their problem is, it's really hard to be a solution. And I think in addition, you can often think like, what are their expectations of you in this time? And sometimes it's kind of hard to know what their expectations are. And so I often say, don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to ask your audience questions that you need to know from them. Do a little sampling, talking to the audience members that you know personally, just asking them what's hard for them. Andrea and I were talking right before we went live that our friends who have kids have a whole different challenge in front of them working from home than her and I without kids. And so knowing that challenge is really important. It's really important. If you're a service provider, if you're selling some sort of product, you need to know the things that are keeping your clients awake at night. At Model Farm, we often do this work, we do pre-work. Before we ever start doing marketing, we create these personas for our clients. So you can see here's just a little example. One of our clients on campus, C-Safe, we talk through who is this person we're going to be talking to. The demographics are there on the left, but really, what are they passionate about? What are their pain points? What are their preferred channels of communication? And so we have these sheets created in advance that I always tell them, hang them up on your bulletin board. Like you need to know who you're talking to on a regular basis. And it gets even into the nitty gritty. How do you answer the phone? Are they like a text person, or are you going to leave them a voicemail and they're never, ever going to listen to it? So all of those things will help you communicate better as you go. And then you need to know how to reach them when you are communicating to them. So using the right tool for the job is, I would say, one of the biggest hurdles that I have experienced doing small business marketing for 10 years. We all get sidetracked by the new shiny thing. Should I be making TikTok videos? You know, I hear all the time. Should I be on Snapchat? I don't know if I'm on Twitter. Oh, I have Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and Snapchat, but I don't use any of them. And so really knowing your audience and knowing where they're getting their information is the most important piece, because you can focus your energy. And as small businesses and nonprofits and even large businesses, honestly, of resources, and really we have a finite amount of energy. And so knowing which platform to use to communicate the message that you're going to so amazingly craft, and you're going to know exactly what you're going to say and who you're going to say it to. You do all that hard work, and then you got to pick the channel to get it to them. You need to pick the right channel. So I think it's really interesting. I got this link, which I put here, and I think Andrea probably will send out the presentation slides, or you can email it to me if you want to look at it. But this infographic was of all the different generations in their media consumption during the current situation. And it's really interesting. I think it's really interesting. Broadcast TV just like shot through the roof. And the brands that are paying attention to that, even maybe in front of that, are the ones that are winning. I mean, I don't know if it's the same for you all, but I apparently now watch the news at 7 a.m., at noon, at 5, at 6. I never watched the news ever. And now I watch the news all the time. And it just is the product of being home and having the governor talking every day at 11. And then I watch the news. It's a different time. And so making sure that you're not only knowing your audience and what they're already doing, but then also kind of paying attention to the current situation. Many of us were around during 9/11. The change in media consumption, is very drastic, and you can look back at those stats, but you can see even already 80% of people in the US and the UK are saying that they're consuming more during this particular crisis, which is actually really good for brands. They are out there in the channels that you are, and they are looking at your stuff, which is awesome. So we're going to talk about that, how you can capitalize on that a little bit. But the first step is knowing where you need to be. So if you think that your retail neighbor next door is using Twitter and you should be using Twitter too, I would caution you and say, does your audience use Twitter? Does Facebook, to be honest, is kind of a safe bet, because for most audiences, even if they're not engaging on Facebook themselves, they're not putting stuff out there, they're still consuming. Even the younger brands or the younger generations are still consuming content out of Facebook. They're just not engaging as much with it. So of course, if you're targeting Generation Z or even younger, Instagram and Snapchat and those things are really relevant to you. But on a whole, you can't really probably go too wrong with focusing on Facebook first, and then broadening out based on how much time you have, how much capacity you have, and if you can create the right kind of content. Again, hooking all your social media together and pressing one button to spew it out to everybody isn't going to serve you well. You might have the content on those pages, but it's the wrong kind of content, and people are going to be annoyed that you're putting Facebook content in their Twitter feed. So this one is hard. Does anyone have questions about, just picking, like, should I be in the traditional space? Should I be in the social space? Which platforms do what? Do you have questions about that?
I'm not seeing anybody right now. I'll just say from the Chamber's perspective, we definitely experience this, like depending on what our group is. So we have our economic development, and a lot of those business owners are on Twitter. But a lot of our chamber members are more on Facebook. And so we definitely alternate messaging and where we focus our energy, depending on who the audience is, what they're a member, which membership organization we're communicating on behalf of. And even like we have a group of interns in the summer. And it was one of those moments like last year, we were realizing the younger generation that were in college last year, they had already moved on. They were totally done with Facebook and Twitter and into Instagram. And we were like, we need to make Instagram. And so we created Instagram, and we've been using that. And so that's just, we're adapting constantly too. We do have a couple of questions now. We have from Dan. How would you advise a business on messaging as they contemplate reopening after the significant shutdown we have endured? And how do you convey you are opening without alienating people that think you should not reopen?
Yeah, that's a great question. As you're thinking about the messaging that you're going to put out there, I mean, obviously you don't want to create the message until you know what you're going to do. And so, I shouldn't say that. If you're still deciding, I think it's okay to communicate that you're still deciding, but giving some parameters around that decision. So I think of my yoga studio, Ignite Studio here in Ames. She did a great job of communicating that, yes, the governor had released, workout facilities to reopen, but she was still contemplating that, and she would have a decision in 48 hours. And I felt very confident in that as a consumer, that she's paying attention. She's not just like, when am I on Facebook? And she's going to consider all of her options and then let everyone know. So you can create the message if you don't know yet, but it needs to be a pretty specific, we're thinking about this kind of thing. And then I think you have to be cognizant of your audience. So knowing if your audience is a group that is ready to like be back in the market and they're not scared of any health issues, then that's okay to say like, we're opening, and it's okay that your audience wants to hear one message. You don't have to be everything to everybody. Be where say the thing that your audience wants to hear. If you have multiple audiences, which most of us do, I think creating a message that is centered around what you want to say, but also offering alternatives is a really great option at this time. So Trey Teal on Main Street is one of my clients, and she's creating an e-newsletter that says that she's opening, or she opened, but she's still offering, Facebook sales and private consultation shopping time that she had created during the pandemic, which is really actually great innovation. And she's still going to keep offering that to people if they're not ready to shop in the store at the same time. So she maybe has audiences who both have sort of beliefs on both sides of the thing, and she's making sure that she's giving messaging to both of them and doing it strategically. Good question.
And then we have one more question right now from Zena. She's wondering about thoughts on YouTube advertising,
Yes.
Either static or video.
Yep. I just was reading a stat that YouTube was the second. Broadcast and YouTube are the two number one places people are consuming right now, which was interesting, and that was based on specific audience. So again, this link here that is up, the Visual Capitalist link, is really helpful. If you want to pull that up and look at your particular audience, you can see where they're getting their information. But if your audience is using YouTube, then for sure, I think creating some pre-roll ads that you could put in front of news, or there's all kinds of options when you start advertising on YouTube. The key is to get a good video made. So if you're going to do an ad, making sure that you sort of spend the time up front getting something put together. And again, it's 8 seconds. It can be, if it's different, there's different options, but making sure that you take a little bit of time to strategically understand what is in a user's mind when they're watching that 8 seconds before they're going to hit skip on you. Your goal is to not get them to skip. So spending a little time up front to do a really good ad is probably going to make your money spent better. when you're dumping it into an advertising budget. But yes, absolutely. I mean, people are on YouTube a lot more, and you can really target your audience. So you can get to that exact demographic that you want to get to in any kind of digital ads. Great question.
All right. I think that's it for questions for now.
Okay, well, keep going and
Okay.
Oopsie. My goodness. I'm apparently hitting something. So sorry. What is happening? Oh no. Try again. So sorry. Okay, let's get back here. There we go. Okay. So we're going to move on to just kind of managing the expectations of your clients now. So great questions like around where we're at currently, which is, opening our doors or not opening our doors. There's a whole conversation around fall. What is that going to look like? And so I feel like we've done a good job of talking through kind of the 101 on crisis communication upfront. And you saw it in this particular crisis. There was a ton of communication upfront. As a PR professional, I was just eating this up. I love seeing the leadership of who's talking about what and who's coming out quickly and who's not. But there was a lot of just directives. This is what's closed. This is our logistical information. And we're sort of past that, but not completely. So as we continue into this kind of time that we don't exactly know an end to, there will be continued logistics. So things like when are we opening, or how are we keeping our particular service offering cleanly and meeting CDC guidelines and all of that. So if you're still working on communicating those, it's always going to pertain. I would say give the information you need to give, but don't overwhelm your audience with, you don't need to tell them every single day that you sprayed down the tables 14 times. No, just giving them what they need, knowing your audience. Some audiences might need to know that the tables were sprayed down 14 times, but knowing your audience and giving them the appropriate amount of information, but really just keeping it simple. At this point, we all know you don't have to start out every single communication with the fact that we're in a pandemic and this is what's happening. They know. So keeping it simple, short, knowing giving them what they need to know. And also I think, making sure that as you continue processing through what you're going to do and how you're going to take advantage of marketing opportunities during this time. This is an example. I screenshot a video that on one of our clients, Heartland Senior Services, they're doing fundraising during this time. And Meals on Wheels has grown extensively because there's so many seniors who are needing food. And so she's using the continued logistic of we need funds. So can you whatever XYZ way to carry on your operations, but also be thinking about ways to communicate your needs back to your audience as well. So after their initial communication, you saw a lot of branding, right? I'm just enamored with Fairway, to be honest. I feel like they did an amazing job of building this brand, and Hy-Vee followed. Nothing against any of the, I'm not picking out brands. I'm just saying in general, the grocery store community, the industry, rose to the occasion in branding. They are on the front lines, and all of their commercials are around showing community support and that kind of thing. And it's feel good, right? Now we all have our grocery stores and we all love them and we're so grateful for them, right? Because they took advantage of that opportunity. So now we're kind of in phase 3, if you will, of marketing during your crisis. Like, okay, like we still have product to move. We still have services to offer. They might look different than they did before. And I think it's really important for us to remember that companies can engage with their consumers. So some of the questions I've been getting are like, is it okay to sell something? Should I be selling something? I don't want to ask people for money at this time. That's not good. I think it's so interesting My mom called me the other day and asked me what I thought about this Boys and Girls Club and should she donate to them. And I was like, wow, like she is seeking out an opportunity to give during this time. And Boys and Girls Club is one of my clients. So I, of course, gave her some really great tips on that. I thought that would be a good idea. Yay, right. But it is interesting. I mean, we sometimes think like, oh, nobody wants to buy anything and nobody wants to give. And oh my gosh, we're all like cuddled up in our homes. Actually, no. I mean, there's a lot of people who are still, yes, at home, but wanting to give, wanting to buy. I think this example from Oak Lane Candle Company I got in my email the other day is just spot on. So she's saying, first of all, she's referencing JT, so she knows her target market well. And then she's saying, oh, we're on the first day of May, and if you're keeping track, we're on day 34,567 of social distancing. You know, she's playing into the idea that we all are feeling all the feelings of being home forever. And by the way, I have this amazing candle that you need. You know, it's still selling, it's still continuing to provide income to her business, and it's engaging me as an audience. You know, I'm definitely her target market. So don't try to pretend that something's not happening. I think it's important that we embrace the idea that we can talk about what's happening and that people understand that. The best brands are integrating their opportunities and their solutions to people's problems into their marketing. And so we'll talk about that and kind of brainstorm around that. But use your brand voice, you know, try to envision like you, like understand you yourself as a consumer. You're at home. How many e-newsletters have you opened that you never opened before, right? I don't read a lot of e-newsletters in my life, but I read a lot more now. So just remembering that statistic that 80% of people are consuming more content. And so you either can be in that content or you cannot be in that content. So you might as well be there. Yeah, I think any questions on that before we kind of pop into some ideas and brainstorming around how you could be communicating to your clients and your customers during this time? We good?
I am not seeing anything right now. If you're
Okay.
typing, please type fast, but I don't see anybody. I don't see anybody starting yet.
It's all good. I know what it's like to watch a webinar. You're probably all eating your lunch. Okay, so just a few tips on doing that, communicating while we're in the midst of this. And then I'm going to talk about some ideas, and hopefully we can brainstorm specifically for your particular businesses if we have time. But as you're working on communication, and some of it is logistic, like Dan's question on, you know, opening up, but some of it is more marketing related. How do you continue sales? How do you continue to book appointments? Or I have a friend who's an event planner and she's just feels like completely at a loss. I don't know. How do I tell them that we don't know? You know, and so working through that kind of communication. But a lot of it is really just at this point continuing to engage. We don't have a really great timeline for anything. We're getting there, which is great, but continuing to engage so that they don't forget about you. So creating content that is relevant like right now. I saw this in an e-newsletter from VRBO. They didn't completely ignore the fact that they actually aren't booking vacations. You'll see at the top, there's the message from VRBO regarding COVID-19, and it's really well written about how they're looking forward to, you know, booking future travel. But then they're creating content around 5 delicious ways to mix up your family mealtime. Everyone I know who is at home is bored with all the food that they've cooked over and over and over again. And they know their audience well enough to know that moms are the ones that are probably booking most of the family vacations, and moms are also the ones who are bored of their meal plans, and therefore we're going to help you like mix it up. Does cooking have anything to do with family vacations? Actually not, right? Like the whole point of the vacation is to not cook at home. So but they know their audience and the pain point of their audience right now, and they're providing that content for them. So be thinking about that. Like what, even if it's outside of your normal like wheelhouse of things that you would talk about, your audience might be experiencing things that they haven't been experiencing before. And so you can be a solution to their problem. It doesn't matter if VRBO is never going to sell anything to do with kitchenware. They are providing a solution, and that brand is gaining more and more trust in their mind. Other just logistical tips. Mobile friendly is a must. How many of us are on our phones, sitting on the couch all day, every day? Your phone goes with you everywhere. Scroll, scroll, scroll. You know, it's, if your content and your, whether it's an ad or it's an e-newsletter or it's a video, if it's not mobile friendly, it's going to get quickly axed. Short and sweet and to the point. Again, knowing the current situation and knowing that people don't have, they're doing this bits and bits and bits and bits of consumption. Nobody's sitting down and reading a 20-minute article while their 3-year-old is like playing quietly on the floor. Not happening. So trying to get little nuggets of information. And if you have a lot to share in a particular topic, trying to think about how you can break that up. You can offer it as a whole piece, but you could also offer it as like executive summary or one pager or all kinds of ways to break up content into smaller nuggets. Video is the same way. I love video, short and sweet. I mean, they say a 2-minute video is kind of like the thing, and it just keeps going down and down and down. And really during this particular time, I would say keep it under a minute if you can. That's hard. It's hard to make a 1-minute video, but you can do it. I promise. I can help if you need help. I will be your slash and burner. Let me take all this stuff away. What's your main point? That's what I tell my clients. So if you're going to do video, whether it's live stream or, a recorded YouTube or something like that, just keeping that narrow focus. This is this little thing I'm going to talk to you about, and I will talk to you about another little thing later. And guess what? Now you have 2 videos. All of the social media platforms love video. They give you better rankings in your, just like your viewership if you have video included. So even if you're scared of video, now's the time to try it. It's definitely worth putting out there. In general, there's people who are maybe not video people that are getting a lot more traction than somebody who maybe has a better product or better content just because they're doing it via video. So take the leap. You can do it. And just like I've been saying all along, keep it simple. Make it simple. You don't have to do this elaborate storyboard and all of the things that a video could be. I think about Cook's Emporium. That they were making chocolate chip cookies at home and put a Facebook post on it, and everybody wanted the recipe, and all of a sudden she was doing live cooking videos of Patrick making pasta, and she's making cookies, and people are consuming it. They're loving it, watching Patrick make pasta. And I think, she could have strategically done that. Maybe she did, but it felt like to the consumer that she kind of fell into it. Like, oh, you guys want to see me make cookies? Okay. And here then she has tons of views and lots of brand engagement, just cooking from her own kitchen. And so she's done a lot of things right, actually. And we have, I'll talk in the next slides, there's some ideas, but one of the other, during this time, we just have to innovate. And one of the things that I thought was really great that Cook's Emporium did is to take their classes and sort of, if you had signed up for a class, you could pick up a package of like this little how-to kit and all of the things that you would have gotten in your class and instructions on how to make the thing that you were going to learn in your class. And now you can like take your class home. And I saw people posting photos of their kids doing the thing that they were supposed to learn in the class. And it just created a ton of engagement when she probably already had purchased the inventory to do that class. And it took her, I don't know, a couple hours to put an instruction sheet together, or maybe she already had it and was going to hand it out. But instead of just canceling the class and saying, sorry, we can't serve you, she's innovating and communicating with her clients in that level, and then got a whole bunch of really awesome social media posts out of the deal. People sort of bragging on her and giving the store the credit that they deserve for doing something cool, like sending their classes home. So I guess I ask you, what are the things, that you are doing or would like to do or struggle with doing in terms of communicating with your clients or customers during this time? And are there ideas that we can sort of brainstorm together around that? And if you have more questions on less about marketing and more about kind of that logistics communication, I'm happy to answer those too. But you be thinking, I'll just give you some ideas that I pulled out of my brain when I was pulling this presentation together. But now's a great time to build your email list. So like I said, I've signed up for so many discounts via email that I would never have signed up for. Not gonna lie, I'm gonna have to go and unsubscribe to a bunch of things when we're done, because I'm getting more email, but they're also building their list. They're building their list through this time, and you could be too. Offering intro deals, offering any kind of deal. Honestly, people are all about the deals lately. I know I've been wanting a pair of Rothy's shoes forever. And if you know anything about them, they're way not in my normal shoe price range budget. But they are offering 50% off to first responders, which is my husband. So heck yes, I'm going to take advantage of that discount. And they're using the opportunity to give a really great deal to somebody. They're getting the social capital out of it, saying, hey, we're helping first responders and teachers too, I think, by the way, any of you are teachers. And I guarantee I'm going to love the shoes, and I'm probably going to buy 3 more pair over the next couple years. They're using the opportunity to get me and to be a loyal customer, which maybe I've been dragging my feet on, and this is something that they like push me over the edge. So what could you be offering? I also think sending samples is a great idea. I know a lot of my network marketing friends are sending samples left and right. Now's the time to try the face cream. Now's the time to like try the fizzy drink. Now's the time to, you've got extra time to research the essential oil industry that you wanted to research all that time. Whatever it is, selling or sending samples of something you sell. And it could be, it could be a product, but it could also be a service. I saw somebody doing free, like 15-minute coaching calls. So whatever it is, if you can get, people have the time to take advantage. Sometimes we don't have time to even take advantage of the free thing or the discounted thing. Now's the time to offer that. Ask for feedback. You can do surveys. You can do anything to engage with your audience if you feel like they have something that you could use in terms of experience, or just, again, what is their general, like, what are their pain points? What do they need to know? I know my church is doing like a regular how are you doing kind of survey. I think it takes like 3 minutes to fill out. And they have said that they just are gaining so much knowledge about the congregation as a whole and how they're doing. And they're using that to inform the next week's message, which is just brilliant. So it doesn't always have to be marketing. It can be nonprofits. It can be just communicating general information to your clients or to your customers. If you haven't done, how many of us, like, you're on a webinar? Would you be on the webinar otherwise? Maybe, maybe not. How many of us are, my husband's an engineer. He does webinars all day long. He's like, I'm on my 4th webinar today. How many webinars? I didn't even know that was a thing. So yeah, the opportunity to provide education to your clients or your customers is really high right now. There's a lot of free time. And so you can do any kind of training. If you don't want to do a live webinar, or you're not really into like getting into the educational software places, you could create, 3 little YouTube videos on how to tie a tie. They don't have to be intense. They don't have to be an hour-long webinar, but what kind of education could you be providing? Did I see there are some questions, Andrea?
We have one new question. So lots of businesses distribute swag with their brand displayed.
Yep.
So we've done the smartphone chargers, pens, golf balls, koozies, you name it.
Yep.
Do you have any new ideas on items that can be used right now? Is Leave Behind whether it's the fun swag or a useful leave behind, any kind of product that people might be
Yeah,
willing to hang on to right now.
absolutely. Can you get yourself some hand sanitizer? Is 4imprint.com out of hand sanitizer? No, that's, I mean, that would be brilliant if you could get yourself some. And actually the breweries who are bottling hand sanitizer is one of the best innovative things I've seen so far. I met with a realtor this morning and they had branded masks. When they came to my house, well, first of all, we had to have a whole conversation about them coming to my house, which I appreciated. And they said, we have masks, we have gloves, like we're just gonna do our, like, we'll do whatever you want us to do. And they came in and they had branded masks. I was uber impressed. And you know, that's honestly, like, everyone's wearing a mask all over. Like, if you could get yourself some branded mask, or even in your brand's colors or something like that, I mean, they got them, so not exactly sure where they had them printed. That would be fun. I think if you think about sort of the situation that your audience is in, so just brainstorming off the top of my head, like if I'm at home and there's something that I could use on my phone, there's something I could use on my iPad, things that will like enhance your laptop experience, any of that kind of thing. So Iowa State put out branded Zoom backgrounds. Brilliant. Like, they design them, they put them out, they're free. Like, what is something that that your audience in particular can use? So if your audience is outdoors a lot and they're like going to Ada Hayden, and maybe it's a bike walk or something that they're going to be using more readily in a time where they have a lot more time. Great question. I see more.
I think it was just a thank you to you. Great suggestions.
Oh, hey, you're welcome.
Well, and I'm going to tag in here. So the thing I keep finding myself looking for are the cord keepers. I have so many cords with the
Yes.
laptop and the printer and the plugins and the, oh my goodness. So the tech tacos and the cord keepers are in high demand in my house right now.
Right. And even just things like how many cups a day are you putting in the dishwasher? Like, a lot, right? So is it a really awesome water bottle so they don't have to keep putting 17,000 cups in the wash? And I actually think if you have any kind of kid related brand, I love the idea of doing like kid size water bottles that they just, you know, they keep your dishwasher from being full of 70 sippy cups. You know, it's like, here's your one, fill it up, reuse it. So I think it really is a matter of knowing your audience. And so what is your audience doing or not doing during this time? Offering things like free ebooks if you have you know, a brand that's more service related. I've been reading a lot more ebook kind of things where, again, the things that you might not have time to do on a regular basis, you now have time to do. This example here that's on the slide is one of our clients, Lauren Liz, and she does calligraphy lessons. And so she has calligraphy gift sets that she's selling, and calligraphy sets of like learn on your own. And now she's doing customized Mother's Day cards because nobody can get out to the stores to buy gift cards. And so lots of different ways that she's innovating her product offering, but she could probably do a free pen to anyone who purchased a starter kit or something like that. You can add the extra thing onto something that you're already selling as well. Just give them a little bit more enticement to say, oh yeah, I want that, and I want my free calligraphy pen.
There is another, can't do swag. Absolutely
Right.
agree. And I think a lot of the lists you have here on the slide are free things that, you know, to take some people power, a
Right.
little bit of time, but they can be doable on a budget. And you know, her industry is hospitality. That's a tough field to be in right now. Definitely. Any ideas for hospitality, Sam?
I started my career in hospitality. I should be able to brainstorm quickly. Well, I think in general, your industry is like, people aren't traveling. And so even though they might not be, you're not going to probably get a lot of product or service sold at this time, not a lot of beds sold, you can be in their world. So I think about a stay-at-home guide for your kids is how to make your house like a hotel, and do the little things like maybe you can send out packages that have like the mini shampoos and conditioners and the things that you already have, mint on the pillow, fold the toilet paper in a triangle, like even a one-pager guide that says like, here's how to have a staycation and make your house feel like a hotel. So thinking about how can you help the person who's at home kind of get the travel experience. And maybe that's, Gateway has bikes that their customers can ride. So we have bikes here at Gateway, and we love that our guests get to use them. And here's the trail map that we send them on. Have you tried this trail map, even though you live in Ames and you never even knew it existed? So I think trying to like bridge the gap of what they would experience with you will help them later experience it with you if they're going to come back to your property after the fact. That's where I would go, is just trying to help them create the experience on their own. And you can make a one-sheeter of here's all the secret touches of a hotel. Did you know this is what we do? We actually spray, warm cookie smell in our lobby, whatever it is, to help them like have an inside scoop in what makes a hotel experience fun. Anyone else? I just have one more slide for us. Kind of just do another do's and don'ts around engaging. Like if you are creating content, whether it's a newsletter or something, a social media post, again, using the words, talking about the fact that people are home, whatever it is, tips on this, ways to do that. Are you bored? Can you do this virtually? How to build a fort, those kinds of things. I think it's taking your product or service, the refrigerator company, having a how-to on making a fort out of refrigerator boxes. Bridge the gap of what it is and what they're doing at home. And kind of avoiding, you don't have to completely avoid all of the words, COVID and coronavirus and, pandemic and all of those things. We all know that we're in it, but just think about yourself. Like, are you tired of watching the news and hearing about the 700th time about XYZ virus? So just maybe thinking about, you don't really have to use those words. You can just allude to the fact that this is the health crisis that we're in, or whatever it might be. Trying to maybe avoid words like hurry up or last chance. Some of those call to actions that we often use and are fine, maybe a little less appropriate in a time that is a little more sensitive. So just being cognizant of that. I don't think you're going to destroy your entire newsletter because you use the word COVID in it, but just being aware and also realizing that people are kind of over listening to that. And so it is part of the communication, of course, and especially when you get back into the logistical communication. But we don't need to all caps everything. It's a hurry. It's a crisis. We know that now. We're ready to do something else while we're in the midst of it. So those are just kind of last little tip slide, but happy to answer any more questions that you might have. Obviously at Model Farm, we're still have plenty of clients who are asking, they're continuing on with their business, which I really am excited to hear. I'm always happy when my clients are succeeding. But we're also doing some sort of pivot kind of communication. Easy Property Management is one of my clients, and they, right from the beginning, they were going to already do a promotion to try to get their apartment renters to renew. And so we created a promotion for them that if they renewed, they would be able to donate $200 to the charity of their choice. There's 3 sort of COVID-19 related: Food at First, Emergency Residence Project, Boys and Girls Club. The residents could choose which charity they wanted to give to, because the business as a whole wanted to give back to the community anyway. And it was a really nice win-win for the renter to say, hey, if I renew, I might have been going to renew anyway, and now I can give $200 to this charity and I feel good about that. So there's lots of opportunity for our current clients and any of you who need help. If you have, you just want to do a brainstorming session or something, I'm happy to help with that. Because there is a lot of opportunity to communicate well during this time. And I think that the brands that are embracing that are going to win. I really do. Just like I said, in our personal lives, we come out on top after a trial, and the brands who embrace it and learn from it are going to be rising to the top.
And from the Chamber, we can attest, Model Farm, we've been able to work with you guys on some projects in recent past, in the past year. And just, you guys, the students are unbelievable. Like, you wouldn't believe that they're still students. You guys have trained them so well and teach them great life skills and professional development. And then, like, you forget there were students doing some of the work,
Yeah,
right? And the product is, the end
they
product is so incredible.
Yeah, they bring things to the table that I don't even know exist. It's amazing.
Absolutely. So I would definitely highlight your guys' work. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm not seeing any other questions in the box here. We are about time to wrap up. So I just want to say thank you again to Samantha Grove from Model Farm for doing our presentation today. Really appreciate you being here to share with us and give us some great insights and some tips. I do want to say we have another virtual business builder coming up next week. On the 15th, we have our friends from DMAC are doing a presentation with us on rethinking stress. So a timely topic right now. It's just so much that's going on right now. And stress can be good. It's not just a bad thing. And so how can we shift our mindsets and reframe and think of it as a good tool to help us in our daily lives. So we're excited to be able to bring that to our audience as well. And all of these are right now are free of charge to our members and the community, thanks to our sponsors, PCmatic and First National Bank. Again, great members of our community and the Chamber who just graciously stepped up to help us make this happen for everybody as we get through this. So thank you again. We will be sending you a survey, so please check your emails and help us learn from this and what other topics you'd like to hear. Give us any feedback, and also then again check us all out on social media. And again, Model Farm and Samantha Grove, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Have a great afternoon, everybody.